All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fourth weekly
Yep.
sync, TCL-65. Um, how was this week been? Good? Yeah?
Good.
It was good. It was
Awesome.
good.
Good.
Cool.
Busy and good.
Yeah, cool. Well, we are going to start things off with some demos, and then we're going to have a quick presentation about pair programming, which you all have gotten some experience doing, and we can just chat about uh about some ideas around how to do it. Um and then we will finish things off going over this next week's issues. So, without further ado, why don't we start off with, let's see, this week we had issues 5 and 6, is that
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
yeah? Okay,
Yep.
why don't we start off with issue 5? Which team
Okay.
had issue?
That was us, me and Lydia.
Yep.
Okay, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Lydia, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I will share my screen and show this.
Awesome. Perfect. All right, guys. So we had issue number 5. Um, so I'm just gonna kind of quickly go over what our issue was, and then we'll give a brief demonstration, and then we'll talk about the code. So, our issue was to join an existing shopping list. Um, so the way that you would do that is we would use those list tokens that um we created last week. So we're kind of building upon the token. Uh, so basically, the way that we were tasked to make a join here by the screen, you can type the token that you wanted and search for it. And essentially, what it would do is if that shopping list had a previous token that was similar, that was the exact same token, then it would pull it up. Yeah. Yeah. To the home page, and it'll redirect you to where you can search for a new one or create one as well. Um, awesome. So I think, did you want to show? Yeah, there you go. Cool. And then when you refreshed it, it would go back. Yeah, awesome. So we can now maybe take a look at the code. So we did most of our work in home.jsx because that's the homepage where you see the form. Uh, so on the bottom, you can see that we created oh, okay. It's all good. All right, so it fires the handle submit function. So the handle submit function essentially is going to is where we have it checked for the token. There was a couple ways to do it. Um, we ended up finding a way that seemed to make sense and seemed to be good in our eyes for it. And it was pretty simple and straightforward. But essentially, as you can see, we use in a sync await, and when we did, we had it reference the check count function. So the check count function is located in firebase.js. Perfect. And we right here ended up creating the check count function. And that essentially is a Lydia, it's what's the name of what it is from the Firebase?
Firebase provided get count from server, so we use that to create the snapshot that we can get our count from.
Exactly. So that's the get count from the server, and then once we got the count, thank you, Lydia. We are able to figure out if the count is 0, then that means it doesn't exist. And then if it's greater than 0, that means it does exist. And that's essentially how we checked whether that token existed in the database. And then there was one last thing that we ended up doing. It was in the add item.jsx. In views, add item.jsx.
There we go.
And what we ended up doing is, in order to kind of make it work for us, previously when we did the add item in a previous week, we had it hard coded to a certain name in the handle submit function on line 15, but we ended up changing that to item name. So therefore, what that change ended up doing, and the reason we did it, was anytime you add an item, whatever list token that you currently have in your local browser, in your local storage, that's going to end up being saved. So essentially, that's how we got the list tokens to be saved to the database, so that we can later search for it. But yeah, that's what we got. Am I missing anything, Lydia?
No, I think you got it. That's everything that we changed.
Awesome. Yeah, if you guys have
great
questions or anything, let me know.
Yeah, no, really, really great job. And I also want to just comment on how polished and prepared that demo seemed. Really, really good. Yeah, what parts felt the most difficult for you in this last week?
We got through the UI changes really quickly, and then figuring out how to solve the problems that, or the part of writing our code that involved Firebase was more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
We had to do like
you
research.
find how'd you find their documentation?
I ended up doing a Stack Overflow type of, like, digging through Stack Overflow and other sources for different ways people had solved that problem, because there were several. And I decided on, I guess I suggested this solution because it seemed like it involved the least work from us, while also not requiring like multiple server calls. And so it seemed optimal for both like a workflow and like we had the option with slightly less work to use the existing server call and check and see how many documents we got back, which would be really excessive if we had people with lengthy lists all over the place in terms of server usage.
Nice.
So this is really light. So, yeah.
Awesome. Really cool. Does anyone else have any questions?
I was just going to shout out that comment about server calls. That's something that's really good to always think about. I know we're like constantly, how can we reduce server calls, increase performance, things like that. That's kind of like the next stage of what you start thinking about when you go beyond just the basic code. So that's a great thing to have in mind. I don't have much else. I was on code reviews this week, so I added a few comments in the PR itself, and yeah, I thought it was a great job.
Awesome. Good job. Yay.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So issue 6. Let's do this.
That's us. I just want to apologize to start. Shannon and I had made a plan to meet to practice before, and I didn't remember until I logged in right at 8, essentially. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
I know it was important to you.
No, it's all good, dude. Like, whatever. It's no, don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, great. So then we didn't have a chance to make plans about who was doing what. So did you have something you would prefer to do?
I'll go with whatever you feel comfortable doing this morning. It's all right. My code is not opening up without errors, so maybe you
Oh,
want to do
okay. Yeah, I ran mine. Let's see. Let me see, check my dev tools. Okay, yeah. I'll just share my screen. I'm sharing a lot of different things. Okay, so let's see. Should we start by going over the issue? I can share the pull request issue page. Yeah, so our issue was issue 6, and our task was to create a form that could search the list items in the list JSX page. And then did you want to go over kind of like the caveats of the form, Shannon?
Yeah, let's do that. Caveats meaning which ones, like what?
Just like the specific things of it, I was thinking we would maybe share.
That works. Let's do that.
Okay, yeah. So the specific parts were that when you were typing, it would filter per like each letter you typed, and then there would be, when there was something typed in the form, there would be like a button you could press to clear the form. Yeah. Okay, so this was, I think, exclusively in list JX.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah.
So at the top, we are importing use effect and use state from React. And we're going to use that in line 5 and 6 this is going to help with our filter. So we're setting state to an empty string and for our search term, and we're setting our filter data to an empty array. So they're all cleared out in the beginning, and then on lines 9 through 15, this is the code that is actually filtering, I believe. It's our filter, and it's filtering it by item, and then it's looking through the list. We've got 2 lowercase and .2 includes to help the list, or to help the filter not be case sensitive. You can use capitals or lowercase. And then line 15 is setting that filter data. I believe in line 19 is where we're using our use effect, which I'm a little confused at what's happening here. Go for it, Patty.
Yeah, so basically, like this dependency array is checking when the search term is being updated or the data is being updated. So when either of those are updated, it will run the update filtered doc or update filtered data function that Shannon just described.
Right. It's not is this okay, go on. I'm confused. Anyway, that part I've been looking at all week. I understood it when we wrote it. And
Yeah.
then I'm just having a moment. So sorry about this demo. Line 23 to 26 is where we're handling clearing our form. And Matthew has awesome comments on our code that I unfortunately didn't see till this morning. I just want to touch on that as soon as I'm done with this. And then down in our form, we have all of our search filter. We have an on change event that is going to change if there's something there or something not. And then down at the bottom, or line 39, is our condition where we're asking it if the field is empty, then don't show us anything. And if there is something in the field, give us some type of way to reset that form. And then 47 through 50 is really just mapping through our data. So it's going through, looking at what we've got and giving us back what we're asking for. I'm so stoked, Matt, on the comments that you made, because while we were writing this code, I was getting confused with the way that it was filtering. It just didn't look like great. Like it worked, but it wasn't great. And your comment about like trim, that's what was weird to me. I was like, this just doesn't look like, I feel like we don't need to have this whole phrase popping up when we're searching. I forget, we were searching for milk, right? And it would bring up a long string that had Matthew at the end of it. And I was like, well, okay, but I feel like there's a different way. So I feel like if we had caught on to that little trim trick, it may have brought milk. It may have found milk sooner than it found like whatever you're on our list and the last word is Matthew. I hope I'm making sense, you guys. And then the other thing that I thought was cool that I wish I had read earlier than this morning was the how yeah, I see you at how it's really not that accessible. Like, and I knew that and I felt that, but like, hey, I'm a newbie and I've been really busy. So I've thought about it this week and I'm like, that's not the best way to clear the list. But it's clearing the list. So I love all your comments and I would love to at some point like put those changes in there because they make a lot of sense and I could learn some stuff. And that's our demo. Any
Yes.
questions?
Well, I want to first of all call out. I really, really like Shannon how you were really open and transparent about what you do and don't understand in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me personally, when I interview engineers, I'm looking for someone who's one of the things I look for is if they're willing to admit things that they don't know.
Yeah.
And I
Good.
really, I think that's wonderful and a very like senior level kind of behavior because it's really difficult to be humble like that. Yeah, and yeah, I think this looks really really great. Does anyone have any questions or comments specific to this?
Yeah, mine's super nitpicky. I just wanted to ask about like the X versus like a red X versus like writing a word out versus trash can icon and what your sort of choice making procedure looked like for something like that.
I thought that it might be a good idea to have like a button that said like clear or reset. But I didn't like really bring too much of it up because honestly, I didn't understand the difference, like the difference between having the X within the field and then like having an actual button. And that, so I didn't really know, and I like, admittedly, like I've been so busy, I didn't even read. And then the other thing on that question, Nicole, is like, Matt had mentioned it'd be cool if we could clear the field with a key. So why did we choose that? I think we just chose that because I was having trouble with it and like Patty understood it and it worked. And then I know for myself, I didn't really think about it until a couple days later and was like, wait a minute, this might not be the best accessibility thing. And then I ran out of time. So I don't know. Like, what do you think, Patty? I think that's why we chose the X, right? Because like it's something you thought of and it worked.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I'll pull up the original issue. I think there was also like language in that felt like, oh, let's like sort of like sent you towards being an X as a button. Oh, and the wireframe didn't have an example of it, so there's that piece too.
It says in the ticket some kind of button, e.g. an X to clear the field.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, you got it.
That's probably where we got the base idea. Like, just do the X.
Yeah, it's like I'm asking not because there's a right and a wrong answer, but because I want to see what you're thinking or if you're thinking about it at all. And also because it's hotly debated. Like there's some things that's like, oh, it's better for this particular type of disability, but not that form of accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things to think about who your potential client list is, right? Like a
Yeah.
senior, an 85-year-old might not know what an X is.
Mm-hmm.
But if
or
you
might
are
not even, they might not even see that X.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know, because it's like within the box, like, you know, people
right,
are
but
like,
if
what the hell? I don't know how to use the internet, you know, and like I didn't even see that X. And then I don't know if we could have used a button. If we used a button, could we have done like an enter thing?
yeah.
Yeah. So I learned a lot in the last 47 minutes, guys. I read those comments and was like, wow, these are some of the things that we like knocked around.
Matt's comments are good.
Yeah.
I was reading through it and I'm like, whoa, I did not comment like this. Let me emulate this man.
Yeah,
And
that trim thing, I learned something new from you, Matt, just by saying that. Like I never used that. I don't know, just didn't. I've never wrote a filter like that. Like any filter, it's always just worked. But we needed that trim because it was bringing up like some banana stuff. I was like, I don't think, you know, I don't want to know all that. I just want to find my milk. I want to get close to the milk. Get me close to the milk. So the trim would have been good.
Love it.
And just anecdotally, like we were really close. We spent like a really long time almost having the form filtering. And like I can't remember, like I feel like the thing for some reason it wouldn't filter. Is that right? Or
the first filter that we had, the one that I came up with, I don't know why that wasn't working, dude. That's why
it was
like,
essentially the same. So we
were
like shifting around the same code for a long time, and it was like we could get it to work like outside of the application, but for some reason like within the way we had it coded it wasn't working. So we spent a really long time focused on that, and then we got it and we're like, okay, let's bust out this button.
Yeah,
so
we were like, all right,
like
let's roll forward because like it's working. Like now what can we try to make work? But yeah, we definitely, I think we came up with like 3 different ways to filter. They should have worked. One had like was like way less code, like it was easier to read, but this is what we stuck with and it worked. So we were like, bye.
There was something that was happening, just to add, like if it's anyone's curious. Basically, when we would pull the data and then run like the list filter, when we would do includes, it kept being like it kept saying like you can't run includes on undefined, and we were kind of like looking at all the reasons that was happening like within the code but would work outside of the code, and for some reason we couldn't figure it out, and eventually we got there, but we had like a really long big hurdle with that.
It was like the undefined didn't make sense to me or
Yeah,
us in general, because like, well, what do you like, it seemed as though there was, you know, I don't know why it was undefined.
Well, and if we changed the filter, remember, Shannon, to be like filter for if the item.name equals like test, it would work. So it would work with filter.
Something.
It would filter it. But anyway, yeah. So I think that's how it ended up becoming this kind of like, I don't know how you call this. Is this like exploded or something? Filter function where we like and had like an actual secondary function within it instead of the shorthand function. I'm using all made up terms, but okay,
I love them. I love them.
Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Well, great job. Huh?
I was just gonna quickly add, everything that I did comment is extra. I just want to like be sure that you all understand that like you hit the ACs exactly as they were required. I was just kind of prompting how to go beyond if you wanted to, but I don't want you to think like you missed anything because all your ACs were exactly hit. So
I think that your comments were awesome because it's the code would have been like more refined, first of all, and it although that we hit the AC and it works, I think that your comments were great because it kind of would have worked a little more smoothly. You know what I mean? So I love them, and I it's obvious that they're suggestions. You know, like I didn't feel pressured, but I liked them because it made me read. So yeah, like, yeah, thank you. Like, cool, let me go check this out. And just real quick, not to eat up all the time, but Lydia and Isaiah, when I did your reviewed your code, I never even saw the word snapshot in a line of code in my life. So I went and yeah, never. And so I went and learned about that. So thank you. That was some like new little piece of code. And I was like, what the hell is a snapshot? Like, what is that? What does that even do? So I learned from you guys today, or this week too. So thanks.
Yeah, for
Awesome.
sure. Yeah.
Very
And I
cool.
agree, Matthew. Like I think I appreciate also having that those comments, because I think it's one thing to like to hit our ACs, but then it's also like I think we're all trying to like get better at like the quality as well. So it's appreciated.
Great. Awesome. Group hug. Yay. Cool. Okay. Well, great job on both the issues this week. I am going to now jump into our pair programming module. So first of all, to start it off, how's pair programming been going so far?
I
Good.
think it's going
Thumbs
good.
up. Yeah.
Been
Awesome.
pretty good.
What's it generally been like? Like what's um the like has one person been sharing their screen, or have you been flipping back and forth, or what has it generally been looking like so far?
I found that, at least for me, it took some time to get used to flipping back and forth. And I'm still like figuring out like sharing the responsibility, like how to do that, how to go in prepared to actually make changes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah,
So
I think it's
yes.
been oh, I was just gonna say it's kind of been a mix because we all come from different backgrounds. And so I feel like each time I've paired, we've done it a little bit different. And I know I think Shannon did like a pairing boot camp or something like that, has paired a lot. And so I did like my boot camp, we paired a ton too. And so it was like cool to talk about how we did that when we paired this week.
Awesome. Cool.
I had never paired.
Never paired. Oh,
I
awesome.
had never paired before this. So it
Cool.
was interesting like learning how to do it with and like Patty said, everyone kind of had their own way, and they all kind of worked, but it's just like it's almost like pick and choose what's best for you. At least that's what I found for this week.
Cool. Very cool. Okay, so pair programming, right? Big thing of it, sorry, I'm moving everyone's faces around. Big thing of it, it's really a lot of it is a mindset and an attitude. It's a big exercise in sharing. It's oftentimes you may just have an urge to like you have ideas, you want to hold on to them, you get very attached to them, and sometimes it's a great exercise in being able to listen and accept other people's ideas, and hopefully they're also doing the same thing with you. It's really, really great to come into things with like a beginner's mind, and I like to think of it like, have you heard of in improv, there's kind of a yes and attitude, um, that improv works the best if people are going to be kind of going with what the other person has really has. And I always think also that creativity in general isn't an isolated thing, but usually comes from an idea coming out and then being interpreted in someone else's mind, possibly differently. But if you go in with an attitude like, hey, that's an interesting idea, you can come up with some really cool creative solutions. It's not about teaching or mentorship, right? The goal really is to be able to work together to come out with um, a solution. It's also it is an opportunity to learn. And we'll get to these ideas of drivers and navigators in a second, but you can probably kind of guess what it is. But the drivers really trying to, or they should generally seek agreement before proceeding, and navigators should be asking rather than telling. Right, the navigator's job is not necessarily just to say like do this, do that, do this, and generally not like on line 15, take your finger and type the F key followed by the U key or anything like that, right? Oh, cool. So now moving your faces over here. All right. So I just mentioned that this idea of drivers and navigators. Have you all heard of drivers and navigators within pair programming before? Seeing some nods. The driver is the one generally who's sharing their screen and controlling the keyboard, and they are essentially trying to like take they're trying to think like very low level about the code, take the ideas that a navigator is coming with and translate them into code. So where I see driver and navigator relationships work really well is if navigators are speaking generalized, like about an idea, and the driver is really really focusing on in the specifics of translating that idea into code, with also general feedback from the navigator. And as I said, it's great if the driver can try to solicit approval or agreement before just jumping into things, because it's very easy as a driver to dominate the coding situation, and you could come out with a solution that really is more of a singular individual kind of thing than a pair or team solution. And the navigator, they're paying attention to the code that the driver is writing, and they're also doing things like Googling things to try to find out answers to questions. It says here kind of a sounding board for the ideas that the driver is coming up with. And they also are looking at things from a bit more of a bird's eye perspective. Like I mentioned before, I generally find that it's best if the navigator is trying to communicate ideas rather than particular lines of code. Yeah. So pairing remotely, this is the only way that I pair personally, and it is increasingly common. And there are a lot of super awesome tools, and towards the end, I'm going to really, really push for one tool that has completely transformed how my team works on things. But in general, like the tools are not going to be the answer for pairing things. It's the general process. So the process, as you all have been doing, is you jump onto a video or a screen share call. The driver shares their screen and codes while the navigator provides feedback and asks questions. Driver pushes the code to a remote repo, and the navigator pulls that code down locally, so that's switching. And then they swap roles and start back at step one. And I think Nicole's experience here of never having paired in person is not unique. I think that's a very common thing, but that's interesting that that's the case when she's in the office 20% of the time. But yeah, I don't know. I find it just as easy to pair remotely as in person. So we talked about our experiences a little bit so far. Now with these ideas of driver and navigator, I'm curious, like, how has that been going? How often have people been switching? And then how has the switch process been? Because I know that was one of the things that one of y'all mentioned right up front is kind of really tough.
My pairing experience obviously was different with all three of my team members. And the person that I switched off driver navigator most with has been Isaiah. When we wrote our code, we definitely shared screen, and then he drove and I, navigated. And then with me and Lydia, and then me and Patty, it was more less switching, but great, just different. And just like something that I try to remember when I am pairing with people is like, first of all, I'm not my code and neither are you, right? And then the second thing is like, I always try to use questions and like we, because it's our code. It's not my code. It's not your code. Like, I don't know if that's right, but it just seems that feels comfortable. Like we, maybe we could try this, or what do you think about this? So that helps me like be in a pairing situation with like different people or somebody I've never known, just trying to be conscious of the way that I speak. And switching off is great. I would like to do more of it.
So how often so far have you all been switching?
I would say, like in my experiences, there hasn't been like an official switch on, switch off. It's been like a little bit more of like a just kind of like casual, like in the moment, oh, well, let's try this. And then there's oh, I encourage using live share too. So we're in the same repo. And so yeah, like it's been able to kind of like have people where you don't have to do the like remote repo, like push and pull, and kind of like I think that kind of takes away from the official switch too. So in my experience, not really. There's no like official switch. It's more of like a casual like conversation and collaboration.
So what I've found is that the biggest source of friction within pairing generally is that handoff. And there's a tool that my team uses that's really, really great, and it's Mob. It's, the website is mob.sh, and I just want to show you a little bit kind of how it looks. So here's the R repo, right? TCL-65 shopping list, and I'm currently on main. So I'd go and I'd switch to a new branch, and I'll just call this mob demo. Looks like I've done this before. On the mob demo branch, right? And then I would go mob starts, and then you can put in a time. So I go mob start 10. Oh, got to, it's very nice and gives you the things that you're missing. So created a branch in the remote, and then I go mob start 10. And then it goes and it creates this little mob prefixed branch, mob, whatever. And then I can go and make like a change some sort. And we can like keep on making a bunch of changes. And we don't have to worry about being at a good place to switch. So like this is a random change. And then down here, all I do is I go mob next. And it goes and it like pushes up the change to this mob branch. And then you can just switch sharing screens, and the next person just goes mob start 10. And then they get the changes. And it makes it so you can just like boop, switch over really, really quickly. I really enjoy it, and I encourage usage of it. But like I said, tools are not going to be the answer to everything. But this one makes it really nice.
That's an awesome tool. I've never seen that. That's so cool. That makes it a lot easier.
I have a
And
question
I'll
about
throw,
the tool.
yeah.
So when you switch back and forth, how do you take that? So do you merge it just like any like regular branch when you're done with it?
Yeah, you brought up the point that I didn't demo. So when you're all done with your pairing session and your feature is all ready, you go mob done. And then it goes and it takes all your changes and it moves them back to the branch that you had started off on. So we can see in the bottom left that I'm on mob demo. And then it kind of creates this like squash commit, but you can go and make a new commit message and then commit like you would normally. So really the nice thing is that you don't have to be at the perfect spot to switch over and have all of your commit history get all weird just because you needed to switch. You can just do it, and then at the end you go mob done, right? And then there are two things that are not in the official presentation that I really highly encourage. One thing is if you go into a pairing or a mobbing session, go in there with like a goal for what you'd like to get done, right? It's very easy to go in and say, hey, let's just code the things or whatever. But if you go in with a very discrete goal, like, okay, by the end of this, we want to have an X button that clears things. And something that's generally attainable within, let's say, a 45-minute period, that's always really, really great to do. And then the other thing is to make sure that you limit your time pairing because it gets incredibly fatiguing when you're not working just by yourself on things. So I generally, my team, we try to limit it to around 45 minutes and then we take a 15-minute break and then we come back. And then the nice thing, if you have these timed switchovers, so you're switching every 10 minutes or every 15 minutes, it's really easy to say, hey, okay, we've switched 4 times. We should probably take a break, right?
So when you do mob
Mhm.
done, that is a single commit. It represents a single commit in the branch. So then you would do mob done kind of like at each like completed task. But you might like
Yeah,
then continue, you would recreate a mob pairing session if you were going to continue coding. Is that right?
uh, yeah, you could do it. I think it's really good, yeah, to do for each task, like you mentioned. Like let's say for the story, there's an X button, and then you also need to add whatever. Yeah, you'd have the X button is your goal, and then you're going to mob on that, and then you mob done from that. And so for each time, you could be branching off of your feature branch that you had named with each of your initials, or like
Mhm.
you'd be on that branch, then you'd mob start on that one, do the things, and then when you mob done, you can commit on that branch. Hmm? Awesome. And in addition to mob, there are a lot of great resources and just general articles about pair programming, kind of attitudes around it, and some theory. I will make this presentation available to everyone so that in your free time, when you're just, sitting around looking for fun stuff to do, you can go and read about pair programming. Yeah, cool. Well, that is all that I have with regards to pair programming. And I'm now going to hand it off to Nicole, who's doing the issues this week.
That's
Okay.
doing them.
Oh, Matt's doing them. That's what I said. Matt. Hand it off to Matt. I did not say Nicole.
Correct. Let's see. So let me make sure. Okay, here we go. Allow Zoom to share your screen. Oh, sorry about this. Yes, Zoom share. Give 1 second.
Lydia, are you knitting?
By the fireplace.
I love
Okay,
that.
cool. Let's see. So I believe I should be sharing now. Is everyone?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So the issues for this week are 7 and 8. So I will run through those real quick, and then we can decide who wants to do which ones. So issue number 7, as a user, I want to see a welcoming prompt to add my first item if my list is empty to help me get oriented to how the app works. So this one's pretty straightforward. So basically, when the user starts a new list from the homepage, they need a little guidance on how to get started, think through what you'd want to see as a user, and make some intentional user experience decisions that will guide our users in confidently adding their first item. So there's only one AC for this. So on the list view, when there are no items to display, you should show a prompt, a button, for example, for the user to add their first item. So it mentions that the wireframe is a little short on the welcoming part of the story, but otherwise functionality is complete. So this is the wireframe that is mentioned. So as you can see, it just has the title and then a message letting the user know that their list is empty, and then giving them an option of how to add an item to their list. So this is separate from the nav. So we have at the bottom these nav links. Updating that is not part of this AC. It's just for the list itself. So I'll give an example of kind of where we're currently at. I'm running this off one of the branches, so it might be slightly different once everything's merged down, but I'm not positive. So if there's no token, we create the list, we're brought to the list page. And at the moment, we just have the filtering option. So the AC is basically asking for a message and a button to add an item. Very basic example that I found is like Etsy. You know, your cart is empty, and then they have kind of a, maybe this is a link, maybe this is a button, but basically a different way of saying add the item or add a new item. So it's essentially kind of what you're doing here. Any questions on that issue?
I had a quick question. So we're not replacing any of the links at the bottom. Those are staying the same. It's just an added thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and then it doesn't seem to say it in the issue descriptions, but when you look at the list page, if there's no items, you also don't want to show the filter items form. Is that correct? It sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, when there are no items to display. So yeah, I don't think that's explicitly mentioned, so it's a good shout out. But yeah, if you don't have any items to display, then you wouldn't need to filter.
Okay.
That could be hidden. Cool. Okay. And then yeah, I think someone mentioned in the comments. Yeah, I do that a lot. If when I'm developing a new project, I'll just go look at what other people have done successfully, and often I'll take like 3 to 5 of the ones I love, and I'll pick the best pieces from each and mash it together. I think there's no original ideas anymore. But yeah, well, there's some. But anyway, so I'll move on to the next issue. So this one's a little bit more, but still fairly straightforward. As a user, I want to mark an item on my shopping list as purchased, so the app can learn how often I buy different items. So essentially, the user just needs UI that allows them to mark the items as purchased so that they can track what on their list they do and do not need to buy. So we're adding a checkbox with a semantic label element. When you do check off the item, we're going to update Firebase, the date last purchased and total purchases. So I opened Firebase here so you can see those are in the collection object. So date last purchase, total purchases. So those two will be updated. And when an item is shown as checked, it'll stay checked for 24 hours and then it'll automatically release. So you want to think through kind of the logic that allows that to happen. And so yeah, after 24 hours, item unchecks itself. And then the update item function in Firebase has been filled out and sends updates to the Firestore database when an item is checked or unchecked. I did have a question of the mentors about that. Maybe there was something changed in a recent PR, but when I did open update item, it didn't seem filled out. Am I missing something there?
can I take a look at the ticket again?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I
We
have
can get
access
in.
to old versions. I can just check those real quick.
What's that? Sorry.
We have access to old versions of this. Let me just check those to see if it was at 1.4. I think it was.
Yeah, so we can get information on that and fill
Yeah,
out if
yeah.
necessary for you guys. But according to the ticket or the issue, it should be filled out. So
I
well,
feel like it's sorry, I'm just want to add that you could read it as once you have filled it out, that's meeting the acceptance criteria.
Yeah,
So
I think that may be right.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Sorry, I read through this spell for 2 minutes before we started. So
no,
uh,
I like how thorough you're being. I mean, it's really comforting.
It's true.
cool. Okay, well, we can get confirmation on that. I will let you know. But yeah, so the notes, while you need to update multiple parts of Firestore document, do not worry about date next purchased. This part here, don't worry about that for this issue. It's only date last purchased and total purchases. And then you can use the Firestore console to test that this feature is working correctly by manipulating the value of date last purchased. So that's the issue number 8. And yeah, I was just gonna put in, oh, I lost it now. Let me just add a new item.
Just quickly confirming that you are supposed to fill out the update list function. It was not previously given filled out.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, if this is an example, as an example of what it's currently looking like, it just has the text. So once this is done, you'll have the checkbox here that you can check. And that's that issue. Any questions on that one? Cool. So this week's, anyone have the errors handy? I can open it up for this week's pairings. No, is it not? It looks like Lydia and Patty and Isaiah and Shannon. Any preference on who would like issue number 7 or issue number 8? Oops.
Isaiah, you want to do 8?
Sure.
All right. We can crush that.
We'll do 7 then.
That's Isaiah and Shannon on 8. Patty and Lydia on 7. Cool. So
Awesome.
those are set. We'll get the threads out. And you can comment on for scheduling and whatnot. Yeah, that's all I have. I'll
Cool.
hand it back over to Mike or yeah.
Yeah, no, this is, yeah, I think that's that will conclude things. I'll try to post this today if I can. Right after this, I'm going somewhere, so I'll try to post it as soon as I get a chance. But yeah, really, 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 really great work so far, and we will see everyone online.
All
I'll
right,
get the pairing threads up right now.
I was gonna say, I
Cool.
think just one final comment. I think the PRs still need to be merged down from the previous one. So there's something you'll want to do before you then branch off again.
We should do that ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to address any of the feedback before, you can. Again, they weren't mandatory. You could just merge it straight down if you're happy with it. But
Yeah. Cool. All right. We'll see you later, all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Guys, everybody have a great holiday tomorrow.
yeah, have a good rest of your weekend.
Bye.
Bye.